Warwick Adlam was the early destroyer, with Mace, Christie and Stanbridge all dismissed cheaply, leaving Newcastle at 3 for 43. The experienced pair of Story and Arms attempted to steady the innings before the left-hander was caught behind for 11. Paul Ross joined his captain only to be brilliantly run out by keeper Nigel Taylor for 3. At 5 for 94, Arms set about resurrecting the innings, bringing up his team's 100 in the 33rd over. But he fell 6 runs later to an ambitious shot, just 3 runs short of his half-century. The last 4 wickets fell quickly, with Newcastle only batting out 47 of their allotted 50 overs. Openers Scott Hookey and Darren Taylor got North Sydney off to a solid start before the former New South Wales and Tasmanian batsman Hookey fell to Jamie Heath for 17. Despite the fall of 2 other wickets, North Sydney appeared to be slowly heading towards victory late in the afternoon. "27 crews from Sydney, Newcastle and the Central Coast battled the choppy 1 metre swell this morning, with Avoca winning 3 of the 6 events. They took out the reserves, 21s and the women's races. In sailing, Belmont crews have filled the placings in the second race of Newcastle's 16-foot skiffs regatta, with John Millward's Beechwood Homes first. And Lake Macquarie's Skilled Engineering, skippered by Chris Nicholson, has won the first round of the 18-foot Skiff Grand Prix series in Adelaide. In athletics, Toukley's Matt Ashford, second from the right in the blue, has run the race of his life to win the Hunter Physiotherapy gift. The 11-year-old upstaged his more senior competitors to increase his pocket money for the week, taking the $250 first prize.
Life has been tough for the 15 young people this Way Up Furniture Factory company employs each week. But since they've had a new start, the future is looking good.
Well, before I had this, it was quite boring actually, and spent most of the day at home. And it was only a weekly thing to go put my doll form in, and since I've had it, it's just been really good.
The Salvation Army thought up the scheme for young people to not only earn a real wage, but develop new skills while producing a saleable product.
I never had no skills before, and it enabled me to have a lot more money, and I had somewhere to live.
So far, pieces ranging from bedroom furniture to computer desks have hit the market. Not only does the company aim to provide people-friendly furniture, but attached to the price tag is a lifetime guarantee. Organisers say it's a scheme where everyone wins.
The result of this project is that we're using long-term unemployed, homeless people, street kids, to make a 70-piece range of utilitarian-style furniture to then help move young people on into the workforce and give them opportunities that they wouldn't have otherwise had.
It's hoped more factories will be established and become self-funding enterprises. Heather Stewart, NBN News.
There's nothing new about business people singing the praises of the region and leading delegations off in an attempt to win big contracts. But now they're about to take a new tack in the shape of the Hunter Investment Centre.
It's to provide a base where we can bring people to the Hunter from the major areas around Australia and possibly overseas and show them the benefits of establishing businesses in the Hunter. We've got so much to give in this region to invite people to come and work in the Hunter and establish business in the Hunter that it's never been publicised properly and never been marketed properly.
It's a government-backed, home-based centre to promote the region without leaving it. Instead, investors will be invited here to a showcase of the region's strength, such as a skilled, untapped labour force, natural resources and lifestyle opportunities. The Hunter Economic Development Council believes the region offers business and industry room to expand.
And they can still reach those mega markets in just as quick a time as they can cross town in Sydney or Melbourne.
After 3 unsuccessful attempts at a world crown, Troy Waters' career is on the line every time he steps into the ring. It was his third and most difficult comeback bout in the junior middleweight division against a wily American. But Ray Mitchell's verse flattered the New York State-based fighter, who was in trouble in the opening 2 rounds before he took his first trip to the canvas in the third. Pompey recovered and received a standing 8 count, only for the inevitable to happen 1 minute and 29 seconds into the 4th round. Waters and promoter Bill Morty will now step up their bid to give the Wombrel boy his 4th crack at a world crown.
With all the work I'm doing, I know that I've got the skill, I've got the ability, and I've certainly got the, the professional know-how and the experience to go all the way.
It was one of the most difficult rescues the Nelson Bay Water Police had attempted. In June this year, the yacht Sea Star got into trouble when its engine and sails failed north of Port Stephens. After battling 8-metre seas, the yacht was towed to Crowdy Head near Taree by Launch Abbott. Today, 2 of those policemen on board were recognised for their persistence and bravery. Senior Constables Peter Wood and Don Anderson.
The whole rescue was effected in about 21 hours. And during that time, seas were up to 7 to 8 metres. And as I said, it just got worse and worse.
Also honoured today, 3 members of the community who helped arrest a man who had fired a shot near a policeman's head at Salamander Bay in December last year. And from the upper Hunter town of Scone, 5 people who assisted police with the search and rescue of survivors after a helicopter crash at Moonan Flat in July. Among them, NBN camerawoman Chick Taylor, who not only filmed the crash, but as one of the first on the scene, helped police and rescue crews. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Bob Horne holds Patterson for Labor with a margin of just 3.3%, but he rejects claims that his advertisement aims to shore up the ALP's electoral stocks, saying it simply reminds voters of Labor's local record of achievement.
I'll be judged on whether I have achieved and represented properly or not. And that is the message that I've got to get across at every opportunity, and that's what I try to do in this ad.
Meanwhile, Mr Horne says the exclusion of Paul Keating from the advertising campaign is no admission that the Labor leader has become an electoral liability. He says the Prime Minister is certainly welcome in Patterson, like the countless federal ministers who visited his electorate in the last 2.5 years.
That's not a sign of someone that's shying away from saying I belong to this team. Most definitely I belong to the team, and I'm very proud of the achievements of our government.
And Mr Horne says the ads don't mean Labor is about to scramble to the polls. He doesn't expect the election to be held before March next year. Ian Cameron, NBN News.
Newcastle will host the international between Australia and New Zealand in just over a fortnight, with the Socceroo squad announced today. Among the 18 players are 5 from the Melbourne Knights: goalkeeper Frank Jurek, Danny Chiato, Andrew Marth, Joe Spiteri and John Makovsky. They are sure to get a warm welcome in the game against the New Zealanders, but it'll be a different story against the Breakers on Friday. The club expects a large crowd to see the locals play against the reigning premiers, following the Breakers' win against Sydney United.
We'll have a good chance because obviously the guys are on a very, very big high after last Sunday. It was a great effort. They dug in. Sydney United, a very experienced side. Melbourne is equally experienced, if not more. So, you know, a lot of guts and determination and grit will again be needed to see us gain points.
The game will also be an ideal opportunity for young stars such as Clayton Zane and Adam Sanderson to shine against the more established players.
Obviously the opportunity is there for them to impress as well. Eddie Thompson has got them in the back of his mind, maybe for under 20 and Olympic Games squads later in the track, so obviously they've got to keep on performing to be considered for these representative games in the future.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
After 9.5 years of sailing the world, the Tempo 2 had to dodge the traffic on its return to Newcastle Harbour. The catamaran has been home to Ron and Brenda Lovett all that time. Its appearance this afternoon a welcome sight to family and friends. Son Craig joined the adventurers after losing his own yacht in a hurricane in the Caribbean. The extra hands proved useful, especially today in helping tie up the craft in the cramped quarters of its home port. Ron and Brenda say their odyssey was mostly plain sailing, glad that they set out in their mid-50s.
And I don't recommend that you go much later than that because it's hard on muscle and bone, and it's hard on the nerves. There's some good parts and there's some rough parts.
The question remains, though, why so long away?
Well, when we left, it was 6 months or 6 years. It just turned out a little longer. There's just so many wonderful things to see and experience other things in life, but now it's time to come home.
While Craig hopes to return to the Caribbean, Ron and Brenda Lovett are looking forward to settling down in their Fingal Bay home. Although after nearly 10 years under sail, they may find it hard to ignore the call of the sea. Ian Cameron, NBN News.
Today's launch promised a championship to better the exciting two-way duel that provided the climax to last year's tournament. In the final round, Queenslander Ken Druce and Victorian Ewan Walters went shot for shot before the Southerner grabbed the prize. Walters is in America playing in its equivalent trainee championship, one of the prizes from last year's win.
The winner gains a start in the Australian PGA, which is one of our biggest events. Also the trip to the US, in which they play in some tournaments in the US, and also the sponsorship opportunities that are created are very important for a young player.
Walters will be back to defend his title, along with sparring partner Druce and 1993 champion Ricky Schmidt.
Walters and Druce are back, who fought it out head-to-head last year, and that was pretty exciting. Also back this year is Ricky Schmidt, who couldn't play last year because of his commitments in the US, and I think between the three of them it'll be a very tight tussle.
Organisers say the tournament record 67 shot by Druce last year can be bettered with a competition so tight, but some of the players aren't so sure.
It's a very demanding golf course. There's a lot of salt bush along the sides of the fairways, and you can lose a lot of balls.
The championship will be played over 4 days starting on November 30. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
It's a sight that farmers haven't seen for some time. Wheat harvesters harvesting a near-perfect crop. A total of 4 million tonnes of grain is expected across the state, 1.5 million of that in northern New South Wales. Today, the first wheat train of the season came into the port of Newcastle, 39 wagons at 50 tonnes each. The wheat from Moree is the best you can get.
That's probably 2 or 3 seasons ago when we had large haulage. Last year we were lucky to haul probably 200,000 tonnes. So you imagine from one year we've had nothing to the next year it's been 1.5 million tonnes.
This time last year, grain was being shipped into Newcastle from South and Western Australia. Our local producers could hardly manage a crop. It was a tough time, but the cycle of Mother Nature has come back around. From this week, Freight Rail expects to haul in 3 grain trains a day into Newcastle. That workload to continue for the next 4 months. Some rail lines that haven't been used for a year and a half will be brought back into use. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Recommends the establishment of an environmental planning committee. The planned upgrade and expansion of Pasminco's Bullaroo zinc and lead smelter has been on the drawing board for more than 3 years. Finally, it's been given the green light after a commission of inquiry spanning 8 months.
$11.1 and 4, the Quinella $13.40, the trifecta $49.90. To Gosford and race 9 over 1,100 metres.
Hard Pimpala Patch. It's been caught off the course, but it's still coming on the outside. Pimpala Patch is chasing Restive. Restive goes clear over the final stages, and Restive is coming on to win by 3/4 of a length. Huge run, Pimpala Patch. It's grabbed second.
And in a tight finish, it was 4, 1 and 9. The Quinella $4.10, the trifecta $45.60.
Wingham Showground was a scene out of the Wild West. The steer roping proved a challenging task for some, with the elusive beast darting out of rope's reach. And the Broncos sent some of the best cowboys straight into the dust, while others managed to ride out the back-breaking bucks using their own unique frog style. And while the cowboys were tough, so was the competition.
Absolutely first class tonight. Some of the riders travelled up from an exhibition rodeo in Melbourne last night, and many of them are national and defending Australian champions.
The excitement of the feature event, the bull riding, caused some spectators to overheat, but as usual, it was a huge crowd pleaser. Ben Jones proved his strength and endurance, taking out the open bull ride. Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
Land and Water Conservation Minister Kim Yaden is pushing the campaign for cleaner waterways in the Hunter region. Community groups looked on as school students tested the waters at the launch of the campaign in Newcastle's Harbour Foreshore Park. The aim is to improve water quality, particularly by cutting back the amount of nutrients, including sewage running into stormwater drains and catchment runoff. The excess nutrients encourage growth of the toxic blue-green algae, reaching critical proportions in the Hunter River system. Both urban and rural communities will be targeted in the campaign that encourages using no phosphorus detergents, washing cars on lawns and using leaf litter as mulch rather than hosing it down drains. Heather Stewart, NBN News. Awabba Park House sits on almost 5.5 hectares of prime waterfront real estate at Burrigal. Purchased for an undisclosed figure, now the house will become the temporary home of the Lake Macquarie City Art Gallery, while a purpose-built gallery is established at the site. On the northern shores of Lake Macquarie at Cockles Bay, next to Lake Macquarie High School, the magnificent site has quite a history. The existing house was designed around 1927 for Newcastle solicitor T.A. Brain. Previously, the original pioneer Quigley family lived at the picturesque spot. In the late 60s, the land was taken over by the Hospitals Commission for future expansion of the Wallsend District Hospital, but the plans were never carried out. Lake Macquarie City Council says it aims to make any developments architecturally sympathetic and incorporate a coffee shop, an artist-in-residence headquarters and additional gallery administration and function space. It's expected plans will be developed next year. Heather Stewart, NBN News.
This is what neighbours of the Valentine house saw in the early hours of October 27 last year. Moments before, they heard a large explosion. In Newcastle Court today, one of those neighbours, Ernest Scott, told how he saw a man who appeared disorientated running from the fire. Another neighbour, Karen Johnston, said she heard someone running and saw a car parked outside her house. As the fire brigade arrived, the car drove off. Also giving evidence, Detective Senior Constable David Taylor of the Scientific Section. Detective Taylor told how a large amount of petrol had been poured throughout the two-storey building, and it was most likely the vapour from the fuel which had caused the house to explode. He said the fire had started at the back of the house near the kitchen. When asked whether the person who lit the fire had intended to cause as much destruction as possible, he replied, yes, they certainly intended to burn the house to the ground. The property, which was valued at around $250,000, was uninsured and was owned by a former policeman and his wife. Although divorced, they'd not reached a settlement on the property. No one was at home when the blaze tore through the Regal Way building. Marianne Clifford had moved out some 18 months before. Her former husband Paul was staying in Queensland. He told police he found out about the blaze a week later when he spoke to a neighbour at a Tweedheads club. The inquiry is continuing. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
This is one audience that's barely in its seat. Everyone an aspiring performer, proud parent or sibling. For the students of 35 schools from Eastern Lake Macquarie, this is their chance to get up in the glare of the lights for some great fun. Eager ensembles wait in the wings with nerves of steel. The festival continues until Thursday at Newcastle University's Griffith Duncan Theatre.
Targeted by several clubs, Jansen signed a 2-year deal with North Melbourne today, ending weeks of speculation.
Oh, I would say it's probably the toughest decision I've ever had to make in my life and probably will have to make in my life. I think without the 2 years spent here in Newcastle, I probably wouldn't be in the situation that I am now.
We tabled what we considered a very attractive offer with Tony and his agent. They were very pleased with the offer at the time. Unfortunately, it appears the North Melbourne offer is substantial.
Jansen will tour Europe with the Australian team over Christmas before linking with North Melbourne in the new year. Giants coach Brett Brown's association with the Boomers was a possible incentive for Jansen to head south.
Well, that helps. Yeah. Again, that was neither here or there, but it does help that Brett's the assistant coach of the Australian team.
At least 4 of last year's squad, including veteran Michael Johnson, remain unsigned, while 6 places on the 9 or 10-man roster have been filled. 2 of them were taken today by Scott Ninnis and Matthew Rees.
Scott, of course, has won 2 championships. He's been to the Grand Final Series 4 times, so invaluable experience. And young Matthew Rees, 24-year-old Australian forward, played with the Melbourne Tigers, almost came to Newcastle last year, and we think there's an important role he can play in our organisation as well.
This is the newest recruit in a bid to crack down on alcohol-related crime. In the past, hidden cameras have been used to educate hoteliers. But with 90% of assaults and malicious damage related to alcohol, the videotapes will be used to prosecute hoteliers who break the law.
We're virtually putting the licensees on notice that we'll be taking an active part in enforcing the requirements.
Police will target underage drinking and the serving of alcohol to intoxicated people. Illicit drugs will also be targeted in the wake of the ecstasy-related death of Sydney schoolgirl Anna Wood and recent heroin overdoses in the Newcastle area.
There's an indication that there is drugs in the community that where people are losing their lives. Obviously, it's a major concern of every police officer in the Newcastle area.
Special festive season events will also come under closer scrutiny, including New Year's Eve celebrations and end-of-year pub crawls. Hoteliers at today's Liquor Consultative Committee were also told that police will use all possible personnel, including 45 volunteers and policing in a support capacity. But police will also be under the spotlight. In lieu of the Royal Commission, Superintendent Curry has called on hoteliers to report any officers seen breaking the law. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.